So, Alison, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you taking the time out to chat to us all about, I think, a really important topic that not everybody talks about, because I think anger and rage are not seen as the thing that you do as a woman, is it? We don't like to be angry, and we're taught not to be angry, be nice to people. So actually, I think this is a really timely thing as well, because we're all talking about menopause, but actually this is one of those symptoms that I think doesn't get a lot of airtime. Can you start by telling everybody about you and what you like doing, what your specialties are, and then tell us about your own personal experience that you've had with this?
Thank you for that, Nikki, and it's great to be here. Yeah, I've worked in healthcare for over 20 years. I'm retired now, but I used to be a chiropractor, and a lot of my work was in body work, and I still do some, but not chiropractic. But I spent my 40s and up to my mid 50s working in India. I ran a healthcare clinic in India. And one of the bizarrest things for me about my whole menopause experience is that I felt very unprepared. And I think that was probably one of the reasons why I found it so personally difficult, is that I had this idea that because I was very knowledgeable about healthcare and I was very fit and I did the right things with my diet, I never really thought about it and thought that I would just sail through it. And I didn't. And on reflection, one of the oddest things was this whole, when I would say it was when I hit about 45, I started finding myself getting really angry. And I would never, ever have said that I was an angry person. And I think this is part of the issue, that in common with a lot of women, I very much grew up with the idea that anger was not something women did. Anger was not something it was okay to feel, and it certainly wasn't okay to express it, to the point that when it first started to happen, I didn't really recognize what it was. And my husband and I would have these quite comic conversations where he'd say to me, "You're getting angry." And I go, "No, I'm not." Well, we have moved on from that, actually. We've moved on from that to now he says, it used to be, "You're getting angry." And I can go, "Might be right about that." To now, if he says you're getting angry, I can go, he's right. And immediately I'm back more where I want to be in terms of expressing what I want to say. But it still bubbles through. And it's still a case of, it isn't something I really recognize. It's just now I'm more attuned and just, I guess, more willing to be a bit less resistant to it, if that's the truth. But it was one of the things that surprised me the most. And I was trying to run a team at the time. So it wasn't just my husband who was getting the back end of it. It was everybody else. It was everybody I worked with. And it was really challenging, and it was quite upsetting because it was not part of how I saw myself.
No.
Who is this strange woman?
This angry person. Yeah. I've had the same thing with, I've gone through an early menopause from the age of 36, or at least that's when I was diagnosed. But I've had the same thing with just having 2 children in the house. This is a new experience for me, and it's because we've adopted in the last year. And I have to admit, I don't recognise who I am when I'm being angry either. It's, who is this banshee? Seriously, what is this? So it's interesting that you've mentioned it. Do you think that a lot of women suffer from this, but they just don't talk about it? The ones that you see in your clinic and things?
I do. They either don't talk about it, or they don't recognise that it's part of their perimenopause. They don't realise, or they just, I think one thing that was really confusing for me is, what I found is I could be getting angry either about nothing or about something that was completely routine.
Okay.
Or not even really understanding why. And I think that presents you with a real dilemma, because if you're at all a bit self-aware or self-analytical, there's part of you going, I really shouldn't be feeling this, and this is not reasonable. And
No.
so that then becomes another barrier to whether you talk about it, or even who do you talk about it with? Because if the very person you most normally share things with, say, is your husband or your partner, the person you live with, your significant other, they might be the person getting the receiving end of it. And they might recognize it, but they might not want to say. And also, if you find yourself thinking, I don't like what I'm hearing and seeing here, it also becomes something you actually don't want to talk about.
Yeah,
So, yeah,
it's
because
really
it's not something you want to name.
No, it's really isolating, isn't it? It's an isolating feeling. And yeah, you're right. And I don't like talking about it with other parents, or because you think, oh, there must be something wrong with me. There must be some part of me. But what I've been noticing in women that I'm seeing in clinic is that actually menopause is a time for shedding. You're almost shedding like the girl or the young woman that would be the people pleaser, or the I'm just going to do everything for everybody. And this new anger is just years of just this suppressed rage that you haven't been able to express, and all of us now it's coming out because you haven't got that filter of the estrogen anymore that's helping to keep it down. I don't know if there's any scientific proof of that, but it just, to me, it seems like this is a time where people are letting go of stuff they're not usually holding on to anymore.
I think there's a lot of sense in that. There's a whole lot of research around chronic pain, which is an area I work with a lot, that looks at the role of suppressed anger. So I do think it's an issue in men and women, but I think it's a particular issue for women that, as you mentioned, the people pleaser, you mentioned you've got to be a good girl. If you've got to make everybody happy, you've got to be the cohesive person who pulls it all together and keeps everybody supported. And I just wonder myself as I'm saying this, if one of the things we're dealing with is that what I found is that when menopause symptoms started to hit, I suddenly couldn't juggle all the balls or spin all the plates in the way that I previously had. So there was also around me a kind of just a fury that other people were still expecting the Alison pre-menopause, and the Alison wasn't available. And nobody was doing this deliberately. This isn't anybody's fault, but it's just everybody, husband, team, everybody was used to me functioning in a particular way, and me being on top of, across the board of all sorts of things. And suddenly I actually couldn't do it anymore. Couldn't process the information in the same way, couldn't remember things, just couldn't handle the volume of home life, running a clinic, seeing patients, getting the shopping, paying the bills, doing the admin. I couldn't do it. And so in a way I was angry with myself too.
Yeah. And this is why I think so many women drop out of the workforce, don't they, when they get to a certain point, because it just does become too much, and it doesn't take a lot to tip you over the edge. It's a fascinating area. And what you said right at the beginning was how you initially, your husband would say you're getting angry and you'd be denying it, and then it was actually maybe you're saying maybe he means something here, to actually, yeah, he's right. So how was it just time, or was it something you did to get yourself from that level of acceptance?
It wasn't just time. It's been an active endeavor to be more aware and more conscious of what I'm feeling and what I'm thinking. Like a lot of people who've got a kind of strong training, strong educational background, an awful lot of what we learn and what we're rewarded for is about using this. Okay, it's about logical, rational thinking. And although that's great skills to have, it can make you quite divorced from what's happening in the body. And it's not that the body isn't signaling you, you're just not listening, or you're just not paying attention. And I think the first step for me was just being able to acknowledge that my husband Martin might have a point. And initially acknowledging that might take me hours after the argument. All right. But I would eventually, when enough dust had settled, be able to go, okay, you might have a point here. All right. And so it was just being able to acknowledge that, yeah, anger was what I was actually feeling. And I think that was crucial, just to be able to accept that, yeah, I was feeling it. And almost to be able to say to myself, and this is what really shortened the gap between me being able to be angry and being able to acknowledge that it was being able just to say to myself, okay, I noticed that I'm feeling angry, and just being able to go, okay, you're feeling angry, Alison. So it's dropping any of the, you're not allowed to feel this, it's not a female thing to feel it, it's not okay to feel it, just to try to put all of that to one side and go, no, actually, you are feeling it, Alison. And I just found that whole kind of acknowledgement really helpful. I also found it really helpful to try and create a bit of distance between myself and the emotions, so that it didn't feel quite, oh, I don't like this person. And you can do that just by, it might feel like a bit of a verbal tick, but I think it's valid that instead of saying to yourself, I'm angry, or having an internal voice that says you're angry, have an internal voice or saying to yourself, I notice that I'm feeling angry. And in that word notice, you're creating a gap. You're just creating a little bit of space. It also helped me eventually to be willing to accept that I didn't necessarily need to know why in order to work with it. Because a big frustration for me sometimes was, I got to a point where I'd know I was angry. And I'd know, to be honest, it probably wasn't appropriate, especially if I was angry with somebody else. But there was part of my brain that was always going, I need to understand why. I need to intellectualize this. If I can understand why I'm getting angry, I can get ahead of it and I can stop it happening again, which is my classic problem solving. And eventually I had to go, Alison, just stop doing that. Just stop. Because sometimes, you know what, when I did sit and reflect, I could not really tell you why I was angry on that particular day about that particular event with that particular person. I really couldn't. I just couldn't track it or qualify it. And I eventually did some work where one of the primary understandings was that you don't have to understand why. And you can apply this to anything. Anxiety, stress, anger, overwhelm, overreacting. You can apply it to whatever you like. You don't have to understand why. I think we get very stuck. I certainly do. And I think this is true for a lot of other women who've grown up in similar cultures to us, of thinking that when there's a problem, we have to be doing something to fix it. And I think one of the things that hits in the menopause is there may be a lot of things you actually can't do anything about. And there is an art in being able to recognize there's a problem, but just being able to sit with it, to be able to just be with them and not put aside, as best you can, put down the bits of the brain that say, I need to understand this, I need to control it, I need to take some action. What am I going to do? Put all of that to one side and just say, I'm going to allow myself to sit with this, or to lie down with this, or to walk with it. And I'm just going to allow myself to journal with it, to be with it. and I'm going to wait to see what comes up. Because I think the surprising thing is that if we can give ourselves a bit of space in that way, actually, there's often something that the anger is trying to tell us. But we need to create enough quiet, enough non-doing, and then we need to trust ourselves enough to actually hear it. And so I think there are different ways of doing this. I personally find journaling, writing notes, really helpful. I find it useful to put down on a page what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling without any filter, and just watching to see what comes up. And what I've also found sometimes is actually at the time there aren't necessarily any answers, but oddly enough, the answers will arrive, usually when I'm doing something else. I like running, and I very often find that a day or two later, after an episode, I'd be out running and suddenly it would, like something would pop into the front of my brain and I'd go, oh, that. And I didn't need to work for it. I just needed to let it arrive, essentially. And so I just think that ability to recognize and to accept yourself, and then to give yourself a bit of space and quiet to see what comes up for you.
That's really powerful, because you're right, it's in the doing, and there must be something wrong with me, I've got to fix myself, what can I do, how do I need to do it, what do I need to do? And actually what you're saying is, hang on a second, you don't have to jump to that. In fact, it's better if you don't, because you need to know there's a message here somewhere. And actually having to think about all the things, perhaps you didn't get enough sleep the night before, someone said something that perhaps subconsciously has reminded you of something that happened years ago, and you're angry at that person still, not the person that sat in front of you. And there's all these little things, isn't there, that once you let yourself hear it, as you said, you can then start to, okay, I understand myself a bit better, and be a bit kinder to yourself, I think, as well.
I think there's one of the great gifts of the whole perimenopause and menopause journey for me was the chance to develop more curiosity about what was going on and a lot less judgment. Curiosity in terms of when something comes up, when you're getting angry, or after you've got angry, just being able to say, well, that's interesting. I wonder what that means. Not done that before, or if I have, why did that come up now? And just allow for that more inquisitive, more accepting that you are where you are, but then bringing that curiosity, dampening down the judgment along the kind of you shouldn't be feeling it, or you shouldn't be behaving that way, or even the rightness, yes, you're perfectly entitled to, because the other person's a whatever, all of which can actually be a bit unhelpful in settling and learning, but bringing back curiosity and just taking the pressure off yourself that way. And as you then say, it just opens the door, especially as we're all struggling in some way or another. We've all got work in progress to do. It's a huge upheaval, and bringing a bit more kindness and compassion.
Yeah.
A big thing for me was learning not to drag myself. So a big lesson.
Yeah, that'll be particularly helpful as well to those younger women, perhaps in the early stages of perimenopause, or even like me, that have gone through premature ovarian insufficiency, where you're trying to do it all, you're still trying to do your thing at work and maybe even start a family, and there's going to be so much that will come from that as well, won't there, about this, I can't do it all, I have to listen to myself, and I have to do things that help to support me, rather than me just pushing through all the time, because
that's right,
you don't have the option.
I was fortunate. I was in a position where I was doing a lot of things already to look after my health. I was already exercising, I was already looking after my diet, I was already meditating, but there was still all this stuff around my need to be constantly doing, constantly achieving, keeping everybody else happy, accommodating everyone, making sure the patient's needs were met, making sure my husband's needs were met, making sure the team's needs were met, and the whole 9 yards.
It makes complete sense. So I'm hoping that people that are watching this, or maybe even listening to it, are starting to perhaps see this in themselves and recognizing that it doesn't necessarily have to be fixed. Although I think sometimes hormones can help. Obviously, if you need estrogen, have the estrogen. Obviously, with people that have gone for it earlier, it's even more important. But I found actually using things like testosterone, which is touted as this amazing thing that everyone should be on, actually made me worse.
Interesting, yeah.
I had to stop using it because I realised that the levels that I was having, even though on paper it was okay, it obviously pushed me up too high. And also I ended up using antidepressants as well, not because I needed it for depression as such. It was more about the serotonin, so that helped to even bring that back into balance a bit more as well. But you still have to work on the mental stuff, don't you, and how you're looking after yourself and the messages that you need to learn from it.
I think there's a huge place for the medication, but we also know it's not right for everybody. It helped me tremendously, so I'm a fan. But I also know that some women don't do so well with it. I did very well very quickly, so I was lucky. I think there's a space for knowing that often there's lots of simple things that we can do to just nudge the process in the right direction. And these are it's very personal. I can't give you a kind of one size fits all approach, but just knowing what soothes you. And for some people, it's just sometimes going for a walk and just getting outside if they've been stuck inside a lot. For somebody else, it might be going, I'm going to spend half an hour reading a book, or I'm just going to listen to some music I really like. For other people, it might be going to the gym. It might be I run and weight train, and both help me mentally enormously. And sometimes it might be just sitting down and having a gym wag with a friend. Know what supports you and recognize that there's lots of little things. I think sometimes we think there have to be big shifts or grand gestures. Often, I think in this time of life, we actually can't cope with that. We can't do I'm suddenly going to be the 5 o'clock in the morning person with the great 5 to 6 a.m. routine. All right? Because we're not the 20-year-old guy on YouTube whose job is producing motivational videos who doesn't have 2 young children.
Yeah, exactly.
We have to be a bit kind to where we are, what's doable for us, and what really works for us. And one of the things I got was just having more confidence in the fact that if something worked for me, that was fine. Didn't have to work for anyone else, just had to work for me.
Yeah, no, it makes complete sense. So you saw the cameo of my cat there, but yeah, she's one of my stress relievers.
Cats are a tremendous support, and I just love the way they invariably turn up when they know they're needed, just to make sure everybody knows they're here.
Yeah,
Cats are tremendous. Yeah, cats are tremendous.
So when my girls cry, she's usually on hand to go, what are you crying for? Come on. Sometimes if she thinks they're crying unnecessarily, she'll give them a whack. So even you've got some rage in you, haven't you, huh?
Cats tend to be quite opinionated, and good for them.
Yeah, she is. But no, that's been really good. So thank you so much.
My pleasure.
I think if anybody wants to obviously pick your brains, talk to you about more, speak to you, there we go, Mind Insight Online. What I would suggest is if you wanted to talk to you, it'd be a discovery call or something like that, right? I think
I offer a free consultation which can be booked through the website. If you have any problems navigating it, find me on social media. I'm on Instagram and Facebook at Mind Insight Online.
Yeah.
You can email me, Alison at Mind Insight Online. There's all these ways to contact me. So just find me somewhere and send me a message or a comment, and we can work from there. Always very happy to offer somebody some time for free and no obligation, just to work out where they're standing and what they want to do.
And I think that's particularly in the POI community. I know that for many people, there is a lot of anger around fertility loss or struggles with getting pregnant, and as well as the how you feel with menopause and the hot flushes and, and the everything. So I think while the charities are there to try and help support, they don't have all the time in the world to be able to do this. So actually we do have to acknowledge that sometimes we have to go off our own back and actually find support, don't we? So yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you so much. And
my pleasure.
I'm just really glad we got to have a chat about this topic, because it's so not talked about. So yeah, I'm looking forward to sharing this with everybody.
Thank you very much, Nikki. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Really enjoyed it.